Hello. I would just like to. I've seen a lot of these semen retention videos online, and I think they're very interesting because it's a very of course broad aspect of different people who are like trying to do the same thing, right? And of course you know these creators like Rin and Bogdan, at least these two main guys that I know, and they are making a lot of great content from each of their own perspectives, of course. Like Bogdan says, he lives in the city, he sees homeless people and a very trendy culture that really, it's very different from where you live. That's very correct, you know. And that's also some of the things that's very important to remember, that people are different and you're different. Like you're not the same person every day, right? No one is. Like that would just be, boring. Nothing would really happen. It will just loop forever, which of course isn't possible in our nature. You can probably see I have written down some things here. I don't really know if I will be talking about them, but something I would like to talk about is that yes, yes, you would be, let's say, God, right? Because everlasting, your soul never dies, stuff like that. You hear it all the time, you know. It's probably true, it's probably not true, it's probably like the same, but let's just say it is true, right? Which would also make it not true. Let's say it is true, and you are the experience experiencing itself, right? The universe. That would make you just an infinite being, right? Because you would just be everyone and everything at the same time. So that makes, of course, everything very important, but also very not important, right? Let's say that in a world where Jesus really lived, right? This very clever man, maybe God, got some information from heaven or just is God himself. You know, if the universe is just truly you all the time, that would still be you today, right? Right now. You know, why would it change? You know, why would you die if you can't die, right? That defeats like the purpose. Of course, you wouldn't have Jesus' body, but you would still be the same essence that Jesus was, right? At least that's my perspective, you know. I like to talk about perspective because it's very interesting, right? Let's say there are two people waiting on the bus, and one is a boy, one is a girl. Doesn't really matter. The boy sees the bus and instantly runs away and screams, "Oh my God, a bus is coming! We're all going to die!" Because last time he saw a bus, it ran over his foot, right? He broke his foot, so now he's terrified of buses. The girl who is standing right beside him, her eyes starts to daze. She smiles at the guy or the girl driving the bus, and she walks inside. She's very happy. She greets the bus driver, and just because the last time she saw a bus, she got her first, let's say, boyfriend, right? So of course she would have a very different experience than just being afraid like the guy. But it's still the bus, right? It's still the same bus. Nothing about the bus changed except their own perception. And this is very, very important, right? Because if something just is, and your mind can make it into the scariest thing or the most lovable thing in the world, this is very powerful, right? Of course, which also make it equally less overwhelming and overpowered. Because you cannot just have one, right? You cannot just have, let me try to put this in perspective. You just have both. You have a boy, right? You have a girl, you have day, and you have night. You have the sun, you have the moon, you have winter, you have summer, right? Eh, Two is of everything, okay? Numbers are very, very, very important and powerful, and I will not be speaking on this because I really don't think I understand anything about it except like one, two, three. So let's just say two, right? Two is you have two arms, you have two eyes, you have two hands, you have two legs. You also have two lungs. You also have two parts of your brain, right? We know this as the masculine and the feminine side of the brain. This means that you have two of everything. If you think something a good thought, you will have also a bad thought. Not maybe not the exact second after the good thought, but it will come eventually, right? Because it kind of just has to. There's nothing really getting around it because there is just two of everything. So let's say your body is very, very healthy, it is trained, it is hydrated, it would also be just like if you work out your body, it's very much stress on your body and you age well, there is just what I'm trying to say is just everything has an outcome, nothing is really good or bad, it just kind of goes. Let's say you're driving very fast, you will eventually have to drive very slow. And I will also talk about this one because being manly is, what's a real man, right? Is it someone who is big and strong who can protect you from other men, I guess, or animals? Or is it someone who can nurture you really, really well and, like make sure the kids is set off to school or or not, right? Like what is a real man? That's not really a thing, anymore. What's a real woman? You know, someone who sucks you dry or someone who doesn't, you know? Someone who just tries to make you the best version of yourself and thinks, oh, let's get you on semen retention, baby, because I've heard that is really good for men. You know, there is not really like a right or wrong way to do things. Let's say people love to say that just because you are fat and you are living in your room all the time, your life is bad, right? It, who says that? You know, a lot of people actually do, but it's still a life, right? And if you can actually be happy inside of your mind while you're doing basically nothing, who is going to tell you it's a shitty life and convince you other than yourself? The ultimate freedom is basically impossible to achieve because it has to make you forget that everything outside of you doesn't have an effect on the inside of you, right? As above, so below. You maybe you know what this is or you've heard about it, but what it is, it's basically it's like the letter 2. Everything that is outside of you is inside of you. And it's very hard to explain this. This is not really something you can put words into or give an actual meaning. It's just like kind of there, you know, like let's say love. Love would be an chemical reaction inside of your brain or maybe your body, but you can just, if you're in love with someone, you can remember them 10 years down the road, no problem. You can remember their voice and their laugh. If you truly had an, I would guess say, and very chemical, very reactive, or high chemical exchange. And do you understand what I'm trying to say? This makes no sense. That it's just chemicals in your brains, like that would just be weird. That's maybe what I don't even think animals is just chemical inside of their brain. It's very on paper trying to understand things that are so much bigger than you that you're uh, just going to convince yourself. You're not going to really prove anything, right? But so as above, so below is is also one of the very important ones because what is outside of you? Let's say you witness a car crash. Let's say you're final level 99 level monk, right? And you witness an insane car crash. Even though you can completely, let's say, just keep out the fear of the car crash, of the people getting hurt, if you can just remove that completely from inside of your awareness, there is still a car crashed right in front of you, right? So this is not just, oh, let's go meditate in a cave for 30 years, you will be untouchable. This is not how it works. I'm not saying I know how it works, but you you have to remember you're only watching this world from one different type of lens. You maybe know the famous guy Sigmund Freud. He was one of the first billionaires, I'm pretty sure, in the world, and he talked a lot about how he could learn a lot of things from other men, of other people, because he knew that what he saw was just what he had learned, like what he could just understand at that time. And of course, it is very hard to completely change your opinion on something just because someone told you to do it. Even if you really believe it's true, your whole body can be screaming against it and saying, no, this cannot be true. But it can. It's just a perception of your own thoughts. And you remember you are not your thoughts, because sometimes you will have very bad thoughts about other people who you maybe really love, right? That that's just you. I like to say that the future is black and the past is white. And that's only because you cannot really see into the future. You cannot really throw any light on the future, but you can throw light on your memories, on the things you have experienced, so you can learn from them and look at them from maybe a different perspective, or just looking at it. You don't really need to say, oh, this was very good or this was very bad. It just kind of happened. And it's it's, of course it happened. It's a part of you, but it's not happening right now, right? So if you really think about it, you don't have to be constantly afraid of your own being, because it's all, when you're dying, it's all going to be reset anyways. And this is very hard to understand because you are not dying right now, right? There would maybe be a long time, a very long time before you die, but it's inevitable, of course, right? No one escapes death. And uh, people are also, I'm seeing this this constant fear of, what if I do this, right? What if I actually release my seed all over my screen? What's that going to do for me, you know? Or maybe my mom will die, right? Something crazy. And it 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 could, it you could release your seed, and that wouldn't probably make your mom die, but it could have another effect, like something you really fear, because you're shooting your energy out of your penis, and that would have a detrimental effect of you because you just lost something that was very dear to you. You may even gain something that is even more or just as much dear to you as your, let's say, a 100-day streak, right? And I don't really care about the days I'm on. I don't really know. I think it's like 140 or something. I don't really keep account. I started, I was maybe, I think, like 60 or 70 days into not doing it until I actually saw this was a thing that people were very interested in. And I keep seeing these new younger guys, or just even older guys, sharing their experiences. And it, of course, none of them are wrong or right, just like me. But I think people are just, they are seeing it from one different kind of angle, right? And this is, if you really want to go very deep into this, this is very explainable, because of course, let's say you have 500 people who goes to the same school, to the same parties, talks with the same people about the same things. They're going to have a lot of interest that are very similar, right? And of course, that would make multiple people think the same thing or look at things from the same lens, or pretty close at least. And this is why I'm not from really like a normal life, right? No one is. What's a normal life? No one can probably tell you. But I have had a lot of, I don't know anything about you guys, but I've had a pretty, I wouldn't, I would probably say rough life, but it's it's all about perspective, really. Probably a lot of people have it maybe 1,000 times worse than me, maybe even more. And that's also why I just wanted to share my experience on thing. And a lot of people are like, you know, this is the right, this is the wrong, and oh, you should just go do what you want. And this is not, of course, false, right? It's not a evil thing to masturbate or watch the corn, right? It's just something that's there, and you can choose to participate or not. Doesn't really have to be this big thing. People love, even myself, I love to find very deep things in, or very deep meaning in things that don't really require it, right? We just look up at the sky and said, let's figure whatever it is out, right? Let's make a god. Let's make a devil, The, these are not, these are not, let's say you go to a club every night, right? And you take drugs and you have sex and you take, this can kill you, right? But death is not evil. It's cruel, but it's not evil. There, and this is also why you can, let's say, one one let's say you walk to the left, you go inside a cave with a trained monk, you start meditating for 20 years, it goes by instantly. You go to the right, you go into an addict's house, you start taking the worst kind of drugs, instantly 20 years. There is not a good or a bad thing there. There is one way you could say the drugs are worse than you because you may die earlier, you may die later, but this is like saying the God and the devil is inside of you, and that's not entirely false because if you have a good thought about something, you will eventually have a bad thought. Maybe not about the same thing, but in that same ballgard. And that's very important to understand. Yes, of course, you could go and take all these drugs and you could have the time of your life, but this is like where kind of the devil comes in, it says, okay, I'll take some of your soul and you'll have an amazing night, right? You'll meet this girl and you'll have sex and everything will be okay for 24, maybe 48 hours. And you go into the monk side and you have a brain or a temple inside of you made of gold. You can just, every thought, you can just see it from a higher perspective. Oh, this isn't so bad and everything is fine. And this is like kind of to say that you are both God and the devil. And it's that's just two words. It's a lot larger than that. I don't, we probably cannot even comprehend this knowledge. This is why none of us know it, right? Even though it maybe probably is there out somewhere in the world. Someone probably knows a lot of things, but maybe it's not his way to share it, right? Maybe he shouldn't. Maybe he should.